New footage of Tony Romo is going viral just days after CBS suspended him indefinitely. The body cam video is giving fans a first-hand look at the moments that led to his arrest, and many now believe it explains why the network made such a swift decision. Let's get into it. The video begins on a highway. It's July 23rd, evening, Interstate 43 in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. A deputy has just pulled over a black Jeep for passing cars in a gore area, which separates interstate traffic from cars entering from an on-ramp. The driver is Tony Romo, CBS's lead NFL analyst, on his way home from a golf tournament. What happens next is what turned this into a viral clip instead of a local police blotter item. TMZ obtained and published the body cam footage from both the initial stop and the field sobriety test that followed, and the two videos together tell a story that's part awkward, part tense, part almost funny, which is exactly why it spread. In the first clip, the deputy tells Romo he needs to step out for a field sobriety test. Romo repeatedly asks whether he can call his lawyer before finally exiting the vehicle, and the officer tells him no and orders him to get out. He complies. Then Romo asks if he can make a call because there's a plane taking off. He is then told he's under arrest. Before any of that, there's the moment that's been clipped and reclipped across every football account on the internet. Romo, sitting in his Jeep, pushes back on the officer's suspicion with a line that's basically become the headline of his own arrest. "Because I'm coming from a golf course, you think I'm drunk?" he asks the female deputy. Then comes the explanation for where he was going. According to the footage, Romo told deputies that he had been coming from a golf course and was on his way to visit grandma and grandpa when he was stopped. It's a detail that sounds completely mundane. A grown man heading to see family, until people started doing the math. Romo is 46, and as Yahoo Sports pointed out after digging through public records, a 46-year-old can have living grandparents. But if it sounds unusual that a 46-year-old man was heading to see both grandma and grandpa, that's because it is obituaries for his paternal grandparents indicate they're both deceased, while a 2017 obituary for his maternal grandmother's husband shows he died in 1983. That detail alone kept the clip circulating for an extra news cycle. The second video is the one that really made people stop scrolling. It shows Romo at a level patch of ground, away from the highway shoulder, going through the standardized field sobriety exercises, barefoot. He's asked to do a heel-to-toe walking test, and according to the officer's own account in the footage, he seems to not understand the instructions for a fairly simple heel-to-toe walking exercise, with the deputy asking him, "Do you understand the instructions?" Romo also brings up his medical history mid-test. Body cam audio catches him explaining that he has trouble bending over because of previous back surgeries, a nod to the string of back injuries that ended his playing career in Dallas years earlier. It's a strange collision of his two lives. The quarterback whose body broke down on an NFL field, now explaining those same injuries to a deputy on the shoulder of a Wisconsin interstate. Then there's the line that's been quoted more than any other from the whole encounter. After finishing the test, Romo turns to the officer and asks the plain question everyone watching at home was already asking themselves. "Did I pass this test?" he asked. "No, I didn't, huh?" He didn't. He performed poorly on field sobriety tests and was taken into custody, booked, and released. Deputies had already flagged physical signs before he ever got out of the car. A deputy told Romo he suspected him of being impaired because he had red, glassy eyes and an odor of an intoxicating alcoholic beverage. From there, the footage moves fast. Hands go up, cuffs go on, and he's placed in the back of a patrol car. Then comes the part of the tape that turned a DUI stop into a legal complication with real teeth. Back at the station, court records show Romo was later cited for refusing to take tests for intoxication after arrest. And when deputies did their inventory of the Jeep before towing it, citations released by the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office indicated an open bottle of an alcoholic beverage was found in the passenger side of Romo's black Jeep during an inventory before it was towed. By the time TMZ posted the clips, this wasn't a story anyone could bury. A man who calls Sunday afternoons for tens of millions of people was now the subject of a different kind of broadcast. One he didn't choose, and one CBS couldn't ignore. To understand why a few minutes of body cam video turned into a career crisis, you have to understand exactly how far Romo had climbed by the time it surfaced. He arrived in Dallas as an undrafted free agent, the kind of afterthought signing that almost never turns into anything. Romo spent 14 years as a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, joining the team in 2003 after signing as an undrafted free agent. He became the face of the franchise, setting records that still stand. Romo remains the Cowboys' franchise leader in career touchdown passes with 248, and he held the franchise record for career passing yards at 34,183 until Dak Prescott overtook him last season. Injuries eventually pushed him out. His release by the Cowboys came after 2 injury-filled seasons, which cost him the job he'd had for a decade when rookie Dak Prescott directed a club-record 11-game winning streak. After Romo's preseason back injury, his 4th back injury since 2013. That back is the same one he referenced almost in passing, while trying to balance on one foot for a deputy on the side of I-43. What happened after retirement is the part that made this suspension sting so much more than a typical athlete scandal. Romo didn't fade out. He walked straight into the CBS booth and almost overnight became one of the most talked about voices in sports broadcasting. He cannonballed into TV, joining CBS in 2017 as its lead NFL color analyst alongside Jim Nantz. And the pairing was initially incredible. His enthusiasm felt genuine, his quarterback instincts sharp, and his habit of predicting plays before the snap made viewers feel like they were getting insider access rather than a rehearsed lecture. CBS didn't just notice, they paid for it. In 2020, Romo signed a 10-year, $180 million extension that pays him roughly $17 million to $18 million per year, instantly making him one of the highest paid figures in sports media history. That number wasn't set in a vacuum either. ESPN had prepared an offer worth $10 million to $14 million a year to lure him away, and Romo ultimately re-signed with CBS instead, for a deal even larger than the one ESPN had offered. That contract is precisely why the body cam footage detonated the way it did. This wasn't some replaceable analyst. This was the guy CBS built its entire NFL Sunday identity around. A 9-figure bet on one voice in the booth. And it's why, even amid the arrest, most reporting agreed CBS wasn't about to walk away from the money already committed. According to Andrew Marchand of The Athletic, Romo had roughly 4 years remaining on his CBS deal, worth around $72 million. But here's the thing, the footage didn't land in a vacuum of goodwill. It landed on top of a year, maybe 2, of Romo's broadcasting reputation already taking hits. Long before Milwaukee, fans and media had started picking apart his game calls. In one nationally covered moment, Romo went viral for an eyebrow-raising comment during a Patriots-Buccaneers broadcast, describing the Patriots as, "This team is DTF Jim," meaning details, toughness, and they finish. A phrase plenty of viewers read completely differently thanks to its other, much more famous meaning from reality television. It wasn't the first time either. Years earlier, during a Buccaneers blowout, Romo's joke suggesting a fan could get a date with Gisele, the longtime supermodel wife of Tom Brady, went viral on social media and drew criticism for being tone-deaf given the moment. By early 2023, the criticism had built into something loud enough that his own broadcast partner felt the need to publicly defend him. Jim Nantz, sitting across from Romo in that booth for years, pushed back hard against the growing pile-on, saying on a podcast that he thought there was a little bit of a misinformation attempt there to portray him in a not-so-favorable light, calling it very disappointing, and adding it really got to me more steam after the AFC Championship game. Nantz didn't stop there, either. He doubled down on their bond, insisting Tony is the best, he's the absolute best, and he's also one of my best friends. I love the guy, and when somebody starts questioning our chemistry, there's an agenda there. There is nothing wrong with our chemistry. I have never had better chemistry with anybody in my career than Tony. That's the backdrop the body cam footage dropped into. Not a beloved, untouchable figure with total goodwill in the bank, but a broadcaster already fighting a narrative that his instincts weren't as sharp, that the booth wasn't what it used to be. Reporting on the arrest picked up on that exact tension. Awful announcing put it plainly. The suspension landed atop a booth partnership that had already been fraying under scrutiny well before the arrest entered the picture. Noting Romo had sat beside Nantz since 2017 carrying that reported $180 million contract. Yet the chemistry that once defined the pairing had grown increasingly difficult to locate. So when the footage of the stop, the sobriety test, and the arrest hit timelines, it wasn't just shocking on its own. It was shocking because it arrived at the exact moment Romo's professional armor already had cracks in it. The video didn't create the vulnerability. It exposed it to an audience that was already watching more closely than usual. Once the footage was everywhere, the pressure shifted entirely onto CBS. What was the network going to do about its highest paid analyst? The answer took about a week to arrive, and when it did, it was short. CBS Sports placed Tony Romo on leave that Friday morning, until further notice. In its first public statement since his OWI arrest in Milwaukee the week before, saying simply, Tony Romo is on leave from his role at CBS Sports until further notice. One sentence, no explanation, no timeline, no mention of the video, but the silence beforehand had been just as loud. Radio host Boomer Esiason had actually predicted the opposite just a day before it happened. Esiason told his radio audience barely a day earlier that he didn't expect CBS to comment on the situation at all, a read that lined up with how the network had handled things all week. He was wrong, and the reversal itself became part of the story. Behind the scenes, network sources were signaling this wasn't being treated lightly. The Daily Mail had reported days earlier that CBS executives had already closed ranks around Romo, with one source telling the outlet, "I don't want to act like it's not a big deal, because it is." The replacement decision is where this stopped being just a Romo story and became a bigger shakeup of the entire CBS NFL booth. The network didn't wait around. Former Houston Texans star J.J. Watt will serve as the color commentator for CBS #1 crew, joining Jim Nantz and Tracy Wolfson as CBS Sports' lead NFL team during Romo's absence, the network said in its press release, adding that it would release the remainder of our NFL on CBS roster at a later date. Watt wasn't some outsider being parachuted in cold. He'd been building toward exactly this. Watt became a game analyst last season after first joining the network in 2023. Before that, he'd cut his teeth in the studio. He was an analyst on the NFL Today for 2 seasons, before teaming with Ian Eagle on the network's #2 crew beginning last season. Sportico's coverage framed the move as less of an emergency scramble and more of an accelerated promotion, noting Watt had already been on the fast track. Last season, Watt was elevated to the network's #2 NFL booth, just 2 years after having joined the team as a studio analyst. And fans reacted almost instantly, not with sympathy for Romo, but with excitement for Watt. Social media lit up within hours of the announcement. As one Yahoo Sports report captured it, judging by the early reactions online, NFL fans couldn't wait to hear Watt call games alongside Nantz, with one fan writing bluntly online that JJ is going to be better on the A-team anyways. Media reporters who cover the broadcasting world in detail zeroed in on a specific word choice in CBS's statement and what it revealed about the network's actual plan. Sports Illustrated's Jimmy Traina broke it down for his readers this way. The release is very specific in saying Romo is on leave. That means hasn't been fired and he's still with the company. What's surprising to me here is CBS announcing that J.J. Watt will join Jim Nantz in the network's lead NFL booth. That would mean Romo is expected to miss some games. Traina's larger point was that CBS clearly wasn't trying to make the story disappear. The network isn't pretending nothing happened and isn't trying to make the Romo arrest story go away. Though based on the statement, it would appear Romo will be back at some point in the regular season. Timing made all of this even messier. This wasn't happening in the dead of the offseason, with months to quietly sort it out. The leave comes just weeks before the start of the NFL regular season, and CBS's broadcast calendar was already locked in stone. The regular season begins September 9th, less than 2 weeks before Romo's scheduled court appearance. And while CBS has one nationally televised preseason game on its schedule in late August, the network's lead announcing team typically doesn't call preseason broadcasts anyway. In other words, there was no soft landing, no quiet exhibition game to ease Watt into the chair. Whatever happens next happens live in front of the biggest audience TV offers. CBS also has an internal deadline bearing down that makes the vagueness of until further notice even more uncomfortable for the network. There's a company-wide preview event on the calendar where reporters get access to the whole roster, and Romo's suspension will at least allow him to avoid having to field questions during CBS's annual NFL Media Confab in New York, an all-hands preview of the upcoming season set to take place on August 11th. That's a room full of media members who would have almost certainly demanded answers Romo and CBS don't currently have. And then there's the money question hanging over every headline, because a one-sentence statement doesn't resolve a $180 million contract. Outlets immediately started asking what on leave actually costs. This is where things could become complicated for CBS. Romo still has significant money remaining on the 10-year contract he signed with the network in 2020, reportedly worth $180 million. Whatever happens with the legal case, the financial arrangement isn't something CBS can simply walk away from overnight. Here's where the story shifts from how bad does this look to how bad actually is this, and the two turn out to be very different questions. Start with the charge itself. In Wisconsin, this isn't prosecuted the way most people assume a DUI is. In Wisconsin, a first-time OWI conviction is treated as a civil forfeiture rather than a crime, and including a $435 OWI surcharge, the maximum penalty for such an offense, if the defendant is convicted, is $735. No jail time on the table for a standard first offense. A fine, a class, and a mark on the record. That's the ceiling. But Romo didn't just get the standard OWI citation. The refusal to test complicated things in a separate track entirely, one that runs through license administration rather than criminal court. Court records showed Romo was also cited for refusing to take an intoxication test after his arrest, putting his driving privileges in jeopardy. He has requested a hearing to challenge the citation, but he could still lose his license for a year. That's arguably a bigger practical consequence than the OWI itself, and the state moved fast on it. The state has already filed a formal notice of intent to revoke his driver's license. He does have a date to answer for all of it. He has a court date set for Sept 21. That lands in a brutal spot on the calendar, less than 2 weeks after the regular season begins on September 9th. Given all that, most people who cover sports broadcasting for a living reached a fairly similar conclusion almost immediately. This doesn't look like the end of Romo's career, even with the footage everywhere. Sportico framed it directly, while CBS did not provide any additional information regarding Romo's booth status. Precedent suggests his misstep is not viewed as a termination-grade offense, and there's real precedent to back that read up. Go back to 2013. Al Michaels was arrested in Santa Monica on suspicion of driving under the influence, charged with a misdemeanor, released on his own recognizance, and eventually pled no contest to a reduced reckless driving charge with 80 hours of community service. And NBC's lead play-by-play voice didn't miss a single assignment that season. There's also a starker comparison on the other end of the spectrum. TNT suspended inside the NBA analyst Charles Barkley for 6 weeks after his arrest on DUI charges back in December 2008. Romo's situation sits somewhere in that range, and CBS's own reporting outlets have echoed the sense that his seat isn't actually in danger. One outlet sourcing suggested as much directly, noting Romo is expected to remain CBS lead NFL analyst despite the arrest, though he may briefly step back. There's also the basic legal principle nobody wants to say out loud, but everyone in this story is operating under. As one report reminded readers watching the footage circulate endlessly online. As with any criminal case, an arrest does not constitute a conviction, and Romo is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in court. The release of the body camera footage simply offers a more complete picture of the encounter between the former NFL star and responding officers. None of that stopped the footage from becoming the story of the week in sports media, though, because whatever the legal ceiling on the punishment turns out to be, the video itself doesn't need a courtroom to do its damage. Millions of people already watched him fail that test in real time. Whether or not a judge later reduces the charge, the clip of him asking, "Did I pass?" is already permanent. And notably, through all of this, Romo himself has stayed almost completely silent in public. Neither Romo nor his representatives had publicly addressed the newly released video at the time of publication. He also quietly pulled out of amateur competition rather than face reporters at a golf event days after the arrest. Romo also withdrew from the Texas State Open in the days following his arrest. One report described his approach for the rest of the offseason in blunt terms. He reportedly plans to keep a low profile for the remainder of the offseason, before diving back into his broadcasting work in September. So where does all of this actually leave Tony Romo, CBS, and the booth everyone's been talking about for a week straight? Right now, the honest answer is in limbo on purpose. CBS structured this as a pause, not a firing, and every piece of reporting around the announcement backs that up. The network's own wording, "on leave until further notice," was deliberately non-permanent. Nobody at CBS has said Romo is gone. Nobody has said he's guaranteed to be back for week 1 either. What we do know is the shape of the next 6 weeks. J.J. Watt steps into the #1 booth alongside Nance and Wolfson for as long as the leave lasts, and that alone reshuffles a chair CBS has been trying to fill behind Watt on the #2 crew. Sportico flagged that exact question, noting it's still unclear how long Watt will fill in for Romo, and who takes Watt's old seat next to Ian Eagle, since CBS said it would provide further information about its 2026-27 NFL roster at a later date. Meanwhile, the legal clock and the football calendar are running on a collision course. Romo's court date sits less than 2 weeks into the regular season. If the case resolves quietly, a fine, a forfeiture, maybe a suspended license for a while, the version of this story that survives into October might just be, Romo missed some early games, Watt had a moment in the spotlight, and the booth eventually went back to how it was. Wisconsin's own penalty structure suggests that's the more likely outcome. It's a civil forfeiture, not a felony, and the precedent from other broadcasters who've been through similar arrests points toward a temporary benching rather than a permanent exit. But precedent isn't the same as guarantee, and the footage isn't going anywhere. The clip of him barefoot on the shoulder of I-43, asking if he passed, already has a life of its own, separate from whatever a Wisconsin courtroom eventually decides. That's the part CBS can suspend and Romo can wait out, but neither of them can actually delete. The video exists now, the way any viral moment exists, permanently rewatchable, permanently searchable, attached to his name, next to the records he set in Dallas, and the contract that made him the richest voice in the business. For now, Sundays in September belong to Watt. Whether they belong to Romo again after that depends on a courtroom date, a network statement that still hasn't been written, and a piece of footage that already told most of the story before anyone in a suit said a word.